Hey guys, this is Dr. Aeronautics. Today we're doing the last scenario with the Amtrak Acela Express and with the Washington to Baltimore route in general, frozen in place. This is during a winter snowstorm. Operate Amtrak Acela Express 2167 from Baltimore Penn Station to Washington Union Station, making an intermediate stop at BWI Airport. The dispatcher is unable to realign a switch at an interlocking, so expect delays while the issue is resolved. Okay, here we are at Baltimore Penn Station, and as one should expect at 7:16 p.m., we're in the middle of night. Good evening. Tonight we'll be operating Acela Express 2167 from Baltimore to Washington. Open the doors and allow boarding to commence. It's interesting. It looks like the controls are set up for you in this scenario. You don't begin from the default positions. Ordinarily, that would be a nice thing, but for me, it's a little bit self-destructive because I am running this using the rail driver console. So one thing that I don't like about this Acela Express is if I turn this destination displays thing on, you'll see that they haven't really updated these destinations. They're just the same ones as before. You know, all the Northeast Corridor ones. I would imagine so, at least. I mean, we might as well take this all the way to New York City to see if it rolls over or not. Carrolton is not even an Amtrak station. Yep, see what I mean? It ends at New York Penn. That stinks. They should update that for the southern part of the corridor. Acela 2167 ready to depart Baltimore. Proceed on signal indication. So that's currently displaying a stop signal, but all of these signals that have been displaying stop signals haven't actually been stop signals. So we have a restricting signal right now, actually. And now it's just cleared to clear. It'd be nice if that could be fixed. Okay, we're in the B&P tunnel now, going underneath Northwest Baltimore. Let's see if we can get some actual neighborhoods names here, shall we? Because Baltimore is not a zone city, it's more of a neighborhood city. We're going under Bolton Hill, Madison Park, Uptown, and we will probably surface in Sandtown, Winchester. Okay, coming up to the B&P tunnel portal. So far, everything seems straightforward. CTC-1 train dispatcher to Acela Express 2167, over. This is 2167. Go ahead, dispatch, over. Yes, we're having issues normalizing the 23 switch at Grove. Actually, 23 switch at Grove. A work crew has been sent to align it, but they won't arrive for some time. We'll contact you again shortly with additional information and instructions, over. Roger, CTC-1. Over and out. Okay, so let's explain what I believe is going on. So Grove is south of the BWI airport station, which we're planning to stop at. So I also mentioned that generally the Acela Express goes both northbound and southbound on the number 2 track, because the number 2 track doesn't have MARC trains on it. So it allows for slightly faster travel. So we have to make the switch over, and they're having issues aligning that switch. So what that means is probably what's going on is the switch is, like the scenario says, frozen in place. They can't move the switch. And what that probably means is we're going to have to stay on the number 3 track, which is going to incur reduced speed limits and possible delays due to being stuck behind MARC trains serving Odenton, Bowie State, and Seabrook. Although if we can move over at the Bowie interlocking, then we can avoid Seabrook. funny, we're moving so fast right now compared with the other scenarios, 3 and 4, due to the temporary restrictions, that I look down and I see 6 miles. I'm like, oh yeah, we're miles away. And I'm like, no, we're moving at 120 miles an hour. And we've just passed Halethorpe. We're almost ready to slow down. The Acela can brake quite quickly, so I think we can wait all the way until we hit that 90-mile-per-hour sign for the first curve south of milepost 106. Actually, we'll use the next signal bridge as the braking point. A kind of cheatsy way to figure out when to start braking is when you look at that ETE counter and look at when it starts to count up. That will clue you in on when an appropriate time to brake is, when that begins decreasing. Okay, loading BWI Airport. Acela 2167, okay to go. Okay, and we have a North Limits Grove stop. So it looks like we can expect a complete stop here coming up, which means we will probably see reduced signal indications calling us to slow down. CETC-1 train dispatcher to Acela Express 2167, over. This is 2167. Any luck with that switch? Over. We're still unable to normalize the switch, and the work crew is a few minutes away. You will stop and hold short of Grove until instructed otherwise. Over. Roger, CTC-1. I'll hold short of the interlocking and await further instructions. Over and out. So yeah, either we're going to stop or expect to stop. And stop. this is a situation where you would actually expect an advanced approach signal. You may have heard me complaining on some of the other videos involving the NEC New York to Philadelphia route, which I'm not a fan of because things are a mess on that route. So many things got fixed here. One of those definitely the signaling, and another thing too is the shakiness of the tracks. This is much better than the other one was. So, and speed limits, and scenery, and the list goes on and on. But what I'm hoping is that this is a situation where we would actually receive a advanced approach signal, because we would get an advanced approach followed by an approach followed by a stop. But for some reason the NEC New York to Philadelphia wants to constantly throw you advanced approach signals, even if you're coming up to an approach limit, which should in and of itself be the first indication that you need to switch. Okay, that is an approach medium. So per the NORAC rules, this would get us down to medium speed, which is 30 miles per hour, by the start of the next signal. Now the signal speed says 20, and the limit says 45. So I really think that should have been an approach signal, not an advanced approach, because we've been instructed to stop at North Limits Grove. That probably means we have a red signal at Grove. I love this dynamic lighting. You see this forest is all lit up because of those spotlights on the other side. Very nice job simulating light trespass. Okay, it's a medium clear. I guess either CETC1 can't give us a stop signal, or the game can't. Okay, we're holding in position here. CTC1 to Acela Express 2167, over. This is 2167. Any good news? Over. The switch heating element failed and froze as a result. The work crew is going to thaw it out, but that might be a long process. The switch is properly aligned for a diverging movement. So you will switch to the number 2 track and then head back to the number 3 at Carrolton. Over. Roger, CTC1, over and out. So it sounds like we're supposed to go right now, but I'll save just in case. You know, of course, in real life, you would be able to talk to these guys and say, hey, does that mean I'm good to go? You know, you'd say something like, Acela Express 2167, are we okay to proceed? You know, it's just like air traffic control. If ATC gives you instructions and you don't understand them, you can just say, repeat your last. But you can't do that in the game. So if I want to ask and misunderstand, then, but I can't ask and then I do misunderstand and get penalized for it, then I like to go back, because that's one of the few chances, the few occurrences where I would not consider it cheating to revert to a save. Okay, we are clear all the way ahead to track speed. So it looks like they actually wanted to send us southbound on the number 3 track all the way to New Carrolton. I'm pretty sure that most of the trains, the southbound Acelas, run on the number 2 track. Actually, you know what? I think I have documentation available that describes that scenario. Whoops, passing a stop train that requires use of the bell. Actually, due to coronavirus, I'm looking at the information that I have in front of me, and I spent 5 hours watching the NEC on the day before Thanksgiving 2020, and I did not see a single Acela Express southbound to get the track numbers. You can believe that. Unfortunately, I do not have that information. But I seem to remember them going southbound on the number 2 track most of the time. I definitely remember there was a time when it went down the number 3 track, because I had the misfortune of being at one of the MARC stations, looking towards an arriving train on the opposite platform when the Acela Express came from behind me at 120 miles an hour. And boy, does that thing draw air when it goes by. Okay, I've been looking off screen for quite some time, so I'm a little unfamiliar with where exactly I am, but I believe, because I literally can't see anything but the headlight and maybe half a catenary post in front of me. But I believe we're coming uphill to Bowie State. Yeah, that's the Bowie State Park Station. Okay, here's the junction with the Pope's Creek, CSX Pope's Creek secondary. It's not a main line, it's a secondary. Although, I don't think I've mentioned this yet before. This section of the originally Pennsylvania Railroad, and before that it was called the Baltimore and Potomac. The reason it was called the Baltimore and Potomac was because the first chartered railroad in the United States, the Baltimore and Ohio, this was back when trains were a new invention, the early 1800s. So Baltimore and Ohio says, well, because we invented passenger travel in the United States, we get exclusive rights of every train that goes from Baltimore to Washington, D.C. So basically, the Baltimore and wanted to be Washington, but ended up being Potomac, went to the authorities and said, hey, we want to build a railroad that's a little bit better, you know, as in below the fall line than the Baltimore and Ohio. And this isn't exactly fair to basically say Washington is off limits from all passenger railroads from Baltimore. You know, that's just not cool. So what ended up happening was the authorities granted a charter to the Baltimore and Potomac that said you are not allowed to send a main line directly into Washington, D.C., but you can send one to Southern Maryland. And you may create branch lines that are up to 20 miles in length. So, of course, what does the Baltimore and Potomac do? They head straight for Washington, and as soon as they're 19 miles from Washington, they turn the main line south and then head for the Potomac River in Morgantown, about 55 to 60 miles south of Washington, D.C. So then it decides, hey, I'm going to build a branch line to Washington, D.C. because it's only 19 miles from Bowie, and I'm allowed to do that. So they build their branch line to Washington. And then they add a second track to it. Oh, no, this is a branch line. This is a branch line. And then they add a third track to that branch line. They're like, no, this is still a branch line. And then they start scheduling most of their services south on this route. And no, it's still a branch line. Still a branch line. And so that's how they did it. And then eventually they got permission for the charter to go away. And from that point forward, the Baltimore and Ohio's monopoly went completely away because they made the mistake of building above the fall line, and that means that all of the trains are going to go very slowly because the track is very curved. But they didn't understand that at the time because they thought, trains, it's so much better than horses. Yeah, but you know what's even better than a train? A train that can actually pull triple digits. And that's why the NEC became the route it is today. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed or not while I was talking, but we switched over to the to the number number 3 track at Carrolton. Okay, that was a little bit concerning. I made an unnecessary stop at New Carrolton. I don't know why I was possessed to do such a thing. I'm actually going full throttle because I want to try to get there on time. You know what probably happened is I was just so caught up in talking about how the NEC railroad came about that I just was totally out of it and thought, hey, station, I stopped there. No, you don't. That's probably what ended up happening. making good time so far despite the issue. Let's just hope that the signals are set right to get us into Union Station. Despite what you would think about an Acela Express coming into Union Station, they do not always get priority. Okay, here we are on track 20, which is the last upper level platform track. To the left is the lower level, which connects with Virginia. Excellent work. Secure the locomotive and your ship will be completed. So pantograph down. Where's the pantograph button? We'll just hit that one. And screen's off. Well, that was perfect, except for the fact that we shouldn't have stopped and loaded at New Carrolton. I got a little bit distracted, but I'm happy that that didn't affect the score. So that's actually the first one, I think, so far that I've actually scored perfect. There's one other that I got gold on. Well, actually, two others that wasn't close to 100. It was definitely closer to, or 1,000. It was definitely closer to 900. So that is all of the scenarios for the Washington to Baltimore route. I really enjoy it. I hope you guys get it because I certainly love it and I love driving it. I love how spread out the scenarios are. Like, here's a summer morning scenario. Here's an autumn evening scenario. Here's a summer storming scenario. Here's a noon in summer scenario. And here's a snowstorm in the middle of winter. So really great. This is by far my favorite route for train simulating. I've been Dr. Aeronautics, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.